Welcome to another video. You've got Mr. Everything English, and today we talk about paragraph structures, and more importantly, which paragraph structure is the best structure to use for your upcoming English language and English literature GCSE exams.
Everything Education. Tuition for maths, English and science.
Guys, what is the point? What is the purpose? What is the need of even having a paragraph structure? A truly good paragraph structure, if it is doing its job correctly, guys, it is there to make your life easier. A paragraph structure, whether it's Peter, PL, Pretzel, whatever it is, should, without you even worrying about it, should allow you to tick off the mark scheme while you're writing the paragraph. You're a student, I'm the teacher. It's my job as the teacher to provide you with the structure, to provide you with a paragraph structure that when you begin to use it, you naturally do what is required for the exam. If the paragraph structure does this, excellent. But more importantly, the paragraph structure must do this and allow you to get the top band answers. I'm talking grade 8 and grade 9. Where the mark scheme talks about thoughtfulness and being detailed and exploring. That is why, in my humble opinion, guys, some paragraph structures make it very, very difficult for you to get the top band. They'll help you get grade 3 and grade 4, but they're gonna make your life very difficult to climb up that mark scheme. Why is that? Let's take a P paragraph and let's take a PL paragraph. They're both essentially the same thing. At the top end, it talks about, is your writing thoughtful? Is your writing detailed? Does it explore? Guys, point, evidence, explain. No matter how good you do, isn't gonna allow you to do that because there's only so much effect, so much explanation you can give of one quote. It just makes it difficult. It makes the exam a little bit harder because the paragraph structure doesn't allow you to go through the mark scheme. That is why, guys, I always advise that whatever paragraph structure you choose, it should help you tick off the mark scheme. So many years ago now, guys, I think at least 6 years ago, I remember teaching my year 11s. And I remember we used to go through the mark scheme every lesson. And I would think, okay, which paragraph, and it was a top set year 11. And I remember thinking, which paragraph structure can I give them that will help them tick off the mark scheme? And because for me, the PLs and the Peters and the Ps, they didn't allow them to get that high. So initially, I created Petizel. It was P-E-T-E-Z-E-L, but Petizel just sounded weird. So I turned it into Pretzel. Point, reference, technique, effect, the zoom, which allows that extra level of exploration, explain the effect, and then you link it back to the top. Now, Pretzel paragraph is what I use and is what I have used for many years now. And it works beautifully because Pretzel paragraphs, guys, can be used for English language, question 2, question 3, question 4 for paper 1, and question 3 and 4 for paper 2, and it can be used for every single question for English literature, the Shakespeare, the Inspector Calls, the Jekyll and Hyde, the Christmas Carol, all of them. But in today's video, guys, we're going to talk through Pretzel, and I'm going to explain to you why Pretzel works so well. So let's switch to the board. Guys, here you have behind me a Pretzel paragraph. Like any paragraph, it begins with the point, and your reference is your quote. Then you pick out a technique and you explain the effect. Then you go back to your quote and you zoom in. When you zoom in, this could be zooming into another technique, or you can zoom into a word, being a verb or an adjective or a noun or an adverb. Then you explain the effect, and then you link everything back to your point. This link is there as your waffle check. Waffle is when you go off task, is when you don't stay true to what you said at the very beginning. So if you get to the end of your paragraph and you can't link it back to your point, then something probably went wrong. Now, the first half of Pretzel, P-R-T-E, is like any other paragraph, like Peter, PL, P, because essentially it's your point, your reference, your technique, your effect, which is what they all are the same. But where it takes you that step further very easily is through the zoom and the effect. So by the time you get to the end of your paragraph, you've really dissected the piece of evidence that you chose. Now, in English literature, as you should know, we are aiming for 4 paragraphs per essay. So for Macbeth, we do 4 paragraphs. For Romeo and Juliet, we do 4 paragraphs. Jekyll and Hyde, 4 paragraphs. Christmas Carol, 4 paragraphs. Inspector Calls, 4 paragraphs. 4 paragraphs per essay. All you do is 4 of these. 4 pretzel paragraphs, 10 minutes per paragraph, and you are setting yourself up beautifully. Now you may ask the question, sir, what about context? How come you haven't got context? Hold tight, let's talk about this. Now, here's the English literature mark scheme. If we look at this, guys, AO1, hopefully everyone's aware of this, guys. AO1 is worth 12 marks, AO2 is worth 12 marks, and AO3 is worth 6 marks. AO3, by the way, is context. Now, that means out of 30 marks, AO3, which is context, is worth 6 out of 30 marks. That is why we don't do context in every single paragraph. If anyone tells you that, tell them this is not history. Why are you making my life difficult by making me do context, which is worth 6 out of 30 marks in every single paragraph? In our essay for English literature, remember I said earlier, we're doing 4 paragraphs. We do context a maximum of 2 times. We do it twice out of the 4 paragraphs. And when we do context, we simply put context after our first effect right over there. That is where we do context. But remember, guys, we only do it twice in our English literature essays. So out of 4 paragraphs, we do it twice. Why? Simply because it's not worth a lot of marks. It is worth 6 out of 30. So why are we giving it so much importance? Now, why do we put context over there and not over there? Simply put, if you look at AO3, guys, what we have to do with context is be able to show the relationship between what we're saying and what context we're using. So embed your context after your first effect and always use context to support your answer. So for example, if you're talking about Mr. Burling and how Mr. Burling treats Eva Smith really, really badly, and that's your first effect, you can say this is a result of the patriarchal society. This is a result of capitalism. But link your context to your argument. Don't just shove it at the end. But that is why I have not put context, because I've seen some paragraphs that give a whole section to context. But what that implies is you are doing context every single paragraph. No, we don't do that. It is 6 out of 30. However, AO1 and AO2, guys, they are 24 marks together. That is why AO1 is your point and your quote. That's AO1. It's your personal response and it's your textual reference. That is AO1. And then AO2, language, form and structure. That's your technique. Explain the effect. That's over there. Then when we zoom in, we pick another technique and then we explain the effect. So AO1 is the point and the reference. AO2 is your language, structure, form and your effect. That's the TEZE part. And your link is just your waffle check. It's just to check that you haven't been chatting poop. Now, just in case, guys, because it happens, somebody might say, sir, my teacher told me that context is worth 15 marks, 20 marks, 100 marks, and that I should do it in every single paragraph. Well, guys, to that I say fiddlesticks. Why do I say that? Because straight from the exam board's mouth, as you can see very clearly, they tell us AO1 is 12, AO2 is 12, AO3 is 6. So please, guys, I beg you, when we are working through our exam, please let's give importance to what it is deserved. So, pretzel fits English literature beautifully. You are aiming for every essay you do in English literature, you are aiming for 4 pretzel paragraphs. By doing 4 of these, you are ticking off AO1 and AO2 without even worrying about it. Because as you work through, you're doing your point, you're doing your quote, you're doing your technique, you're doing your effect, you're doing your technique, you're doing your effect. And then, out of 2 of the 4 paragraphs, just bring in context, patriarchy, capitalism, Freud, whatever it is, in 2 of the 4 paragraphs, and bring it in right there after your first effect. Now somebody might say, but sir, Peter has technique, Peter has effect, P has effect. This is now the last layer of understanding the mark scheme. For the top band, your writing has to be convincing. Convincing means if you're going to say that Macbeth is influenced by the witches, you better persuade, you better convince me of your argument by the end of your paragraph. But more importantly, you must be critical and explorative in your analysis. You can't do that. Well, you can, but it's very, very hard to do that if you're just doing one effect. I think of the word exploring like digging. When you do your effect, you're digging deep. You're trying to figure out what is the writer trying to say via this quote, via this technique. And that is why this plus the zooming in, plus the effect just allows you to push your grade up that little bit more. Now that is why English literature and pretzel work absolutely beautifully. Then we move on to English language. Now this is the mark scheme broadly for English language. So for paper 1, question 2, it's language. Paper 1, question 3, it's structure. Paper 1, question 4, it's the exact same mark scheme, but for that one, they use the word methods and they add the statement. But essentially, guys, it's the same thing. Now the question is, does pretzel fit English language? Of course it does, guys. It fits beautifully. I would never give you a mark scheme to let you down in the exam. Essentially, guys, in English language, for question 1 to 4 on both papers, you're marked on 3 things. You're marked upon your quote. We are having a quote there, and we're having a quote when we're zooming in. You're marked, by the way, guys, that's where it says quote. You're marked upon your technique, which they call subject terminology. In pretzel, we talk about techniques twice. We talk about it over there, and we talk about it over there when we zoom in. And you're marked upon your effect. We do effect over there, and we do effect over there. What does that show you? That without even thinking about it, you are doing the bullet points in the mark scheme twice in your paragraph. We've got 2 quotes, we've got 2 techniques, we've got 2 effects. Beautiful. Now, in English language, are you marked on your point? No, you're not marked on your point, but we do the point just to make sure we have answered the question. So if it says, how is Mr. Fisher presented? Just say Mr. Fisher is presented as being lonely. Guys, as you can see, pretzel works beautifully for both English language and English literature. But there are some questions. Well, not some. There's the only questions that pretzel, Peter, Peel don't work is the comparisons. So it's the poetry comparisons and the paper 2 question 4 comparisons. For that one, I've got a whole different method which I will release in a video soon. But for everything else, pretzel works beautifully. Remember, guys, you begin with a point. Your point is you telling the examiner that this is what I'm arguing in this paragraph. Then you back that and you back it with the quote. Then in the quote, you find a technique. If you can't find a technique, either stop using that quote because it's a rubbish quote, or start talking about verbs and adverbs and so on. Then you explain the effect of the technique. What is the effect of the verb? What is the effect of the simile? And then once you've done that, we go back to our quote and we zoom in. When we zoom in, we either pick out a word or we zoom into a different device. We explain the effect and then we link everything we've argued back to our point, and there you are done. Guys, that is why I believe pretzel paragraphs are perfect for English language and English literature. If you use them, good luck. If you don't use them, good luck. It's been Mr. Everything English.
Everything Education. Tuition for maths, English and science.